Hey, how y'all doing today? Great to hear. Welcome back to another edition of Tune Talk, where I go over bands' discographies and rank them on a tier list. Today, we're going over a bit of a smaller one, a smaller discography, but it is one that I am very passionate about, and it is Mazzy Star, the rock band from the early 90s, consisting of Hope Sandoval and David Roback. They are one of my favorite duo groups ever. I've listened to all of their albums constantly, and I figured it'd be fun to do a bit of a shorter tier list today, but still one I figured would be quite enjoyable. They've released 4 studio albums over their run, from 1990 all the way to 2013. So yeah, I just wanted to give all of them a little bit of praise because I do think that the group is quite underrated. Um, I think that besides for one song that we'll get into, they are really not super well known, and I think that they definitely should be more well known because I quite love them and I think that they've made some of the most beautiful music of the 90s. So I would like to go over them today. So we're going to go ahead and start with their debut, She Hangs Brightly from 1990. Um, so this album is when the group I say the group, but the duo. This is when they were more of an actual rock band before they became super emotional, super like just having better like they're just more of a rock duo, I want to say. They had a pretty big change up in sound for their next upcoming 3, but I think it's a good thing because it helps this album stand out. And I actually quite like this album a lot. I think it is beautiful. Even though it's not the typical Mazzy sound, you still can tell who it is that made it. And that's especially apparent with, songs like Hala. I never know if I mispronounce that, but the opener. And then you've got She Hangs Brightly, which is my favorite song on the album. It is just beautiful. I love it. It's about 6 minutes. It's pretty long. You've got Be My Angel and Taste of Blood. You've got Ghost Highway, which I've always thought was quite underrated. You've got Before I Sleep, the closer, which is pretty decent. It's pretty short, but I would say it's memorable. The production is just super laid back, just super chill, and I think it's for a good reason. I think that it's just super it's just a super catchy rock album from the 90s. It's not my favorite from them, and I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece because there are some on here like I'm Sailing and Write It On. There's just a couple on here that I'm not too big of a fan of, just some kind of generic Mazzy Star songs, but as a whole, it is a decent way to start, and I revisit it quite often. Not really too much to say. Besides that, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it up in the beats here. I would say it's a pretty decent Mazzy Star album. It's not my favorite. But yeah, next up we are going to move on to their 1993 sophomore record, So Tonight That I Might See. And I'm just going to say right now, this is the album that inspired me to make this list. And I just want to say that me and this album go way back. Gonna get a little bit of context in here. Way back, like almost 10 years ago by now, my parents sadly divorced. It was a very heartbreaking time, very emotional, and it was of course very depressing. And around that time is when my dad introduced me and my sister to this album, and it helped me, but at the same time it broke me because for those who have not listened to this is one of the most devastating albums I've ever heard. I would say like up there with like Carrie and Lowell from Sufjan Stevens as well as others. Just incredibly heavy, incredibly emotional. Also, A Crow Looked at Me by Mount Eerie. Stuff like that. It's just very depressing but gorgeous at the same time. It's not all down bad. It's not all, sad here. But so much of this record is so, so, so sad. But I think that that works in its favor because this record is absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely adore this record. It means so, so much to me. And like I said, it is the record that inspired me to make this list in the first place. It is in my top 10 albums of all time, I would say. If not top 10, it's like top 12. It's like right on the end of top 10, but I would probably say it's like number 10 on my favorite albums of all time list. Which I know a lot of people might not agree with, but I think it's absolutely perfect from front to back. I can basically praise every single song on here. You have the opener Fade Into You, which is their most well-known song. It's one of their most gorgeous songs. The chorus makes me tear up every time. It's my sister's favorite song of all time. I've heard it dozens of times, and if you haven't heard it, which I highly doubt because it is massive, I highly recommend you go check it out because it is absolutely breathtaking. And then you've got Bell's Ring, which I love the guitars on there. I love Five String Serenade. It's basically just hope and a guitar, which is like how a lot of these tracks are, but it's especially apparent on that track, and I think that track is gorgeous. Blue Light makes me cry every time I hear it. I love the organ. I think it's an organ that's playing in the beginning, and then the guitar riff that plays throughout the whole thing is just so, so beautiful. I've already decided I think that's the song I want to slow dance to at my wedding. It's just absolutely perfect. Unreflected is a jam. Wasted is a jam as well. I love the boom, 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 like that slow riff that goes on throughout the song and it builds up tension over time. You've got the closer, So Tonight That I Might See, which is by far the longest song at 7.5 minutes. And I used to not be a huge fan of it. I used to think that the track before it should have been the closer, but I think it works perfectly as a closer as well. It's one of the more heavy-hitting songs, I would say, and I think it's a good way to round out the album. But then there is Into Dust, the second to last song on here, which I'm just going to say, so this is in my top 10 records of all time, or around there. Into Dust is in my top 10 songs of all time, just songs in general. I think that it is like the most depressing song I've ever heard, but it's also one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. It is absolutely just stunning. It's mainly just hope and guitar, that's all it is, but it is just done flawlessly, absolutely flawlessly. I cannot recommend that song enough. It makes me cry every time I hear it, just like 2 or 3 more on this album do. Like I said, it is a very emotional record, but as a whole, I mean, this thing is, to me, flawless, and it means so, so, so much to me and my family. It helped me get through some very rough times, as well as encourage some of those very rough times as well. But I think that for anyone who has not heard this album, it is well worth your time. It is Mazzy Star's best record, in my opinion, and I would happily throw it in the S tier. And for anyone wondering, yes, I do consider it a 10 out of 10. More for me personally, rather than the record as a whole, but that's not saying anything because it's perfect in my opinion. But yeah, that's going to conclude that one. Next up, I want to talk about Among My Swan, their next record from 1996. So a 3-year gap between the three. You had 90, 93, and 96 now. So they took time to work on each of these in between, which I appreciate the dedication. And this is an excellent, excellent, excellent way to follow up their last record. I don't think it's as good, but it's still just packed full of heavy-hitting emotional songs, amazing lyrics, amazing vocals, just phenomenal guitar playing, phenomenal just sound. The production is great. There really is nothing but praise for me again all around, with a couple exceptions I will get into, but I want to get over my big praises first. Flowers in December, one of my favorite Mazzy Star songs of all time. Cry Cry is fucking beautiful. Look on Down from the Bridge is on the fourth Mazzy Star song that makes me cry. It just gets me, man. And it was used perfectly in an episode of Rick and Morty. I believe that's the only place it's ever been played in media, and it's just used flawlessly there. And it really just that's where I discovered the song as well, because that show came out right around the time I started getting into the group, and I was like, oh my god, this song's amazing. And Dad was like, oh yeah, that's Mazzy Star. Checked it out, love it. Then I checked out the rest of the record, and there are so many highlights as well, such as All Your Sisters, Roseblood, Happy, Umbilical, the opener Disappear is great. There really is pretty much, again, nothing but praise from me. Happy to me is just kind of okay. Let's see here. Still Cold is good. Take Everything is good. But, like, there's no songs on here I would say are below good. There's no decents or bads or mez, anything like that. They're all good or excellent. And I think that is like, that's pretty commendable to have such an excellent track list. And yeah, I happily, again, I would throw this up in A tier. I don't have as much to say about it as I have So Tonight That I Might See, just because of how personal that record is to me. But yeah, it's pretty damn good. All right, next up. So next up is Seasons of Your Day from 2013. A huge gap in wait time between records. Went from 96 to 2013, so what's that, a 17-year gap? Something like that? Long time. I know that the two broke up for a while from songs, from like making music, broke up for a little bit, and then I guess they just finally decided to get back together and give us one last record. Not saying that they could be done, but it has been a long time, and it's been 11 years now since this came out. And I enjoy this album, I really do, but I will say that it is my least favorite Mazzy Star album. Not a bad thing, though, and it's not my least favorite by much. I think that from all four of these records, their discography is pretty damn close to being perfect. Really, really close. The lowest record of theirs and mine's like a 7.5 out of 10. Really. Maybe a 7. But like, in that ballpark. I really don't think their albums go any lower than that in terms of quality. And everything here is pretty much just typical Mazzy Star. I just don't think that the songwriting is as high as it was on the previous records. I just think some of these tracks are just kind of okay. And it is shorter, which that is not necessarily a bad thing. Well, no, it's not shorter. It's around 50 minutes, around the same length as the previous ones. But I just think at some points it feels a little bloated. I love In the Kingdom. The opener is great. And then you've got California, which I would say is probably the most popular song off of here. And for good reason, it's really damn good. You've got Comet Burn. You've got the title track, Lay Myself Down. Spoon, which is a pretty long one, and it's one I like quite a bit. And Flying Low, which is excellent. Yeah, the closer. It's pretty long as well. It's about 7.5 minutes. But it's really good. And I think, again, the album as a whole is really good. I just don't think that it's up to par with the previous three, but only by a smidge. I would still happily place this in the B tier. No questions asked. It's still a good album. I would say, like, D is bad, C is okay, B is good, A is great, and then S is, like, amazing. Like, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, like, amazing. Yeah, and I would say Seasons of Your Day is right up there with their debut. And I mean, I think that's pretty much going to conclude this one. Again, just a bit of a shorter list here. Only 4 albums to cover. I believe it's the shortest I've covered so far. But, I mean, I think that this is a pretty excellent discography for the size of the band. And who knows, maybe one day they'll come back and they'll make another one. You never know. But yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of praise to this duo because I don't think they get enough of it. They've made some amazing records, one of my favorite records of all time, and some of my favorite songs of all time. And I just think that they have a very distinct sound. They have a very distinct, like, vibe, and the emotions they give off is just absolutely incredible. But I think that's going to conclude it for this list. I just want to thank anybody who has stuck it out to this point for watching. Be sure to stay in tune because I've got quite a few videos coming out pretty shortly. And whoever is out there watching, you will have a wonderful rest of your day. So thank you very much.